Welcome to the Genealogy Gems podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hi, and welcome to episode 71 of the Genealogy Gems podcast. Thanks so much for taking time out to join me today. I'm recording this episode actually just before leaving for the Family History Expo in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm really excited to get back out there and see all the folks and find out what's new and what's going on. And once again, they have put together a ton of great classes, and I'm hoping to squeeze in a couple. I've got my eye on a couple of classes I want to do in between teaching the 3 classes that I'm going to be doing and spending time at the Genealogy Gems booth in the exhibit hall. And at this conference, I am debuting a brand new item that I've been working on for months, and it's ready, and it will be available for the first time at the Expo. It's actually inspired by you, really. You know, you guys are all such gems to listen in on the show. And I was thinking about that, and it just seemed to me that there ought to be something wonderful to wear that shows off what a real genealogy gem that you are. So this weekend, I am making available for the first time the Genealogy Gem rhinestone jewelry pin. It is gorgeous. It's 2 inches wide and about 1 inch high. It's a pin of the words Genealogy Gem, all written out in tiny, shimmering rhinestones. If you like a little bling, you're going to love it. You know, my grandmother always wore sparkling costume jewelry, and I was really fortunate and very lucky to inherit it. And this pin just fits right in with all those wonderful vintage pieces. And but hopefully, if there's a great response, I may figure out a way to make those available on the website as well. Okay, well, let's jump right in and head over to the mailbox. I've got a couple of emails here in the mailbox. This first one is from Russ Carr out of Tucson, Arizona. I've got a couple of emails here in the mailbox. This first one is from Russ Carr out of Tucson, Arizona. And he says, enjoy the show and research tips. Like you, I have several generations based there in Central California, primarily Oakland region. I'm hitting a brick wall, finding an obituary or record of death on my great-grandfather, and was wondering if you had any local tips. He disappeared off the radar between 1930 and 1948. I know this because I have him in Oakland, where my family never ventured far from, on the 1930 census. But by 1948, when my great-grandmother died, her death certificate indicates she's a widow. As you already know, the available databases for deaths in California start at 1940, and other resources are limited. I have tried on the state and local level to obtain a death certificate, and all requests come back record not found. I have spent endless hours searching the Oakland Tribune archives, but as you know, that is not an exact science. When I do get a hit, it is a gold mine, but still not perfect. I have written the cemetery where my great-grandmother is supposed to be interned, asking for her plot information, and sought to see if he was also there, but they don't seem to have a regular office and no response to mailed requests. Even posted a photo request asking same on Find a Grave, but no takers yet. Any other suggestions? I would have to figure that someone who spent the majority of his life owned a business, and all the family stories indicate that he was in Oakland the whole time, that a death record must exist somewhere. The state won't help unless I can give them an exact date. Yeah. Suggestions? Regards, Russ Carr. Well, Russ, when I first got your email, I had a couple of things in mind. First thing that popped in my mind was the California voter registrations would be a way of at least tracking him closer to the death date. Those are between 1900 and 1968 at Ancestry.com. You can also try U.S. Gen website. Go to Alameda County. Of course, that's where Oakland is. And I think they have a lot of resources over there, so you could check with them. And also, I would really, you mentioned he owned a business. Pursuing the business angle is a great way to go. Maybe you've been searching for him in the newspapers. Try maybe searching more on the business itself. In the newspapers, even on eBay, which we've talked about before on the show, and certainly through the state archives. Again, not that you're going to find his death record, but that you're going to narrow in and focus in, hopefully taking his activities as far as you can up until the point where they stop, and that should narrow in on the death date. And of course, you can try the Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness website as well. You can post that you're looking for a cemetery check or a visit to the state archives or whatever, and there may be somebody there who could help you as well. But interestingly, I actually went to my email and I wanted to get a little bit more information from Russ, just so I could try and make sure that I was exhausting all the possibilities of suggestions to give him. And I got a very interesting return reply. Instead of the name and the information about the ancestor, this is what I got. He says, "Hi, Lisa. Well, the little angels were in my court because the same day I emailed you, I was listening to your old archives in the premium member section when I heard you mention the acts of random kindness." We just mentioned that, which I emailed the same day. Well, someone who lived near the cemetery was able to get a hold of a record of my great-grandfather's burial date, but said that there was no date of death. Using that date, I manually went into the Oakland Tribune obituary archives and went back a few days before the burial date, and there was his obituary. The image was a bit distorted, like many of the archives, which is why it would not come up in a regular search. That's a very good point. I can now go to the state and attempt a death certificate with the knowledge of who, what, where, and when. I was so excited I used the same methodology to find other elusive obituaries and found the majority of them manually, knowing the date range, that would not come up in a search on newspaperarchives.com. I learned a valuable lesson on this one, and I hope that you pass it on to others. Well, I can see a new Gems on my iPod, so I'm off to listen to it. Thanks again, Russ. Well, what a perfect email. What a perfect kind of wrap up to the whole question. It sounds like Random Acts of Kindness was the way to go. And I love when those little genealogy angels just kind of jump in and participate, because they just can make that serendipity happen that you just can't force, right? So I am so happy for you, Russ. Congratulations. I'm really, really pleased that the information that you're hearing in the premium membership is paying off like that. That is awesome. And we talked with David Graham of Ancestry.com about Member Connect in our last episode. We are going to finish up that interview in this episode. But I put the word out and kind of asked you guys to write in and give me your thoughts and opinions so far on Member Connect. And I got an email from another premium member, Kay Hayden, and she had some thoughts on this. She writes, "You asked for comments on the new Member Connect feature on Ancestry. Watch out. I'm opening Pandora's box." What a mess. Since they introduced the feature, it has had problems with various browsers. Some days I haven't been able to view those databases that they've converted. Many days I could not print or save the images to my computer. Information on their blog reveals that I'm not alone. It would seem that they did not do adequate testing before adding the feature. The first day it began, there were 4 connections on my Ancestry homepage. Those same 4 are still there, and none have been added, which seems a bit odd, and I've seen comments from others that have observed the same exact thing. No new connections since the first day. And in fact, the new connections were to the same databases that had been previously reported with the shaking leaf to members in my tree, long before the inception of Member Connect. I have relegated the Member Connect to the bottom of my homepage, and I'm not expecting much from it. Also, the databases that have the new feature now have windows that are so cluttered it's nearly impossible to read the data. There is a feature for enlarging the data and getting rid of the transcription at the bottom, etc., but the truth is it hasn't worked much of the time either. My biggest concern is that I believe this feature is only going to add to the proliferation of bad genealogy found on Ancestry. The shaking leaf was already taking its toll. The unwary and gullible and the name collectors seem to be assuming that if Ancestry recommends something, it must surely be correct. She says, here are some things that I find happening. I have many members of my family who were born, lived, and died in Arkansas. The postage abbreviation for Arkansas is AR, which I don't use on the internet, choosing to spell out the whole name for states. However, others with similar information on some of the same people do use the AR, and now there is one of the public family trees that has all of these people's facts in Arizona. Most of which took place long before Arizona was even a state. Yes, I can ignore those hints, but it just bugs me that when they show up as conflicting with my solid research. One of my great-great-grandmas, a good farm wife who never really traveled more than 50 miles from her home in Arkansas, is now showing up in one tree as dying and being buried somewhere in Bavaria. Who knows how that came about? Of course, that person does not respond to my email, and so I've left a comment on the page. And lastly, I've discovered in the case of people who do not have dates, and yes, I have some of those, siblings or children mentioned in deeds or wills about whom I have no other information as yet, and I refuse to guesstimate. Shaking leaf hints for people who lived in the 17th or 18th century are showing up as being in censuses in 1850 in some states, 1851 in England, even the World War I or II draft cards. Just crazy. I have subscribed to Ancestry almost from the beginning, depend on their census records, but it seems to me like the more features they add, the more junk there is to wade through. Anyway, that's how I feel about it. Keep on podcasting. I love your podcasts. Kay Hayden. Kate, you make some really, really good points. These were some of my concerns, I think, in taking a look at it as well. There's the positive side of making the connections, but then, as you say, it's just painful to be online and see data that you know darn well is just wrong. And then frustrating. You make the effort through the Member Connect function to connect with that person, to try to correct things, and you can't. And one of the things that really occurs to me is you could really end up wasting a lot of time tracking those things down. And that's one of the challenges. And that's why I was so interested in doing this interview with David Graham, because he was showing us some of those features where we can ignore certain people or ignore certain data or, manipulate it on our screen. So it is customized to how we're doing our research. So, Kay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass along your email to David Graham, and we're going to finish up our interview with him today. It's still a great tour. I think there are some very positive things about it. It's interesting to hear that you're having some troubles, and I think some other people have mentioned this on the Ancestry blog, having troubles with just the functions working properly. And I don't know if they're still working out some bugs, but it sounds like, at least when David and I were doing the tour, that it was kind of still in a testing mode. So that's one of the hard things, is you get really used to something working well. And then when something new comes along that should improve it, it actually is kind of in that what they call beta testing mode, and it ends up being fairly unreliable. And that's a hard thing to go back to when you've had something that's been working really well. So anyway, great, very valid points. I appreciate you sharing your comments, and interested to know if others of you out there listening are having these kinds of challenges. This is absolutely the kind of feedback that David Graham was interested in. They really do want this feature to be a help and really improve your experience on Ancestry. I know I'm the same way as you, Kay. I use Ancestry all the time. So it really matters to me that it works properly and that it works smoothly. So anyway, I will pass this along. Thank you so much for your feedback and your comments. And of course, I welcome those from the rest of you. You can email me, ancestry.com, of the Member Connect feature. Well, David Graham is the Director of Product Management over at Ancestry.com, and he says he's learned a lot about family history working for the world, and this has really fueled his passion for discovery through collaboration. David is going to take us through the second part of our tour on Ancestry.com's Member Connect feature. Tour on Ancestry.com's Member Connect feature.
So then this last area in the tree is what we call recent activity. And this is based entirely on those connections you've established for this ancestor. So when they make new discoveries, we'd notify you about that here. And again, we're not going to change anything in your tree, but we want to make you aware of what the people you said you're interested in are doing in case they uncover some great new discovery or upload a great photo that you don't have, or whatever is the case. So when you go here, this lists essentially new public research that the people you've connected to have done in their public tree. And then you can click through on any of these items to see it in their tree and learn more and decide if that's something you want to dig into more, ask them questions about, if you want to go back to your tree and make some updates based on what you learned. It's really just a list of things you might want to dig into. Depending upon how active the research is around that ancestor, it may be a fair amount on this list. So over here on the upper right, you can uncheck what you're not interested. So you might say, I'm really only interested in, for example, new photos that people are uploading. You could uncheck the other boxes here. The list will then update, and now I'm just seeing the new photos and stories and such that members are adding about this ancestor that you're connected around.
Great. So you're not inundated with every last piece of minutia when perhaps that person's just catching up, but you're already there and you just want to see the new stuff. So what other types of, it's a little hard to read on the screen, what other types of ways can we define what we can receive besides just like photos?
These checkboxes are really filtering the list. We'll keep all the information there so you can get to it, but you can just filter it out. And right now, they're kind of all pre-selected at first just so you don't miss anything, but then you can quickly unselect them. But the categories we have now, and based on feedback, we're working to refine them to make them as useful as we can. One is new content other members have added or uploaded. This is like photos and stories they've added to their trees. Then there's content saved by members. So this is something they found on our site that they added, like a census record, for example. Then there's facts and sources. So this is they manually entered a new source for something they already have, or they discovered something somewhere and typed in a new marriage date, things like that. New people added to trees would be they added a father to this person or a child to this person. Then we have member comments. So that may be somebody has commented actually on your public tree if your tree is public. And then the last is activity on content you've added. So if you've uploaded photos about this person publicly and other members have found it helpful and saved a copy of it, we'd let you know about that so you could see that connection as well.
Are these filters just for this individual then?
Exactly. So this whole list, when you're on a person in your tree, is all specific to this one individual. And then you could switch to another individual to see kind of the activity around them and then filter that list how you'd like. There's also another page that I'll show you as soon as we're ready that is kind of a list of all the activity on the site around everybody in your tree as well as all the records you've saved or commented on or made corrections to. So that list can actually get pretty long for somebody who has a lot of activity on the site, and that's something that we're very actively working on trying to help create more ways to get to the most relevant stuff really quickly.
Oh, great. Let's see that.
It actually looks very much the same. You can get there if you put your mouse over the Collaborate tab. There's a link that says Recent Member Connect Activity. There'll also be a small kind of mini version of this list on your home page, and you can always, if it's not proving helpful, you can always move that down on your home page. And there'll also be a small section if you click the main Collaborate tab where you'll see this, and those can include links to this full list. So this is the full list. It looks, again, very much the same. And, again, you can filter down just what you're interested in. This has one category that the other one doesn't, and that's historical record activity. So that's essentially if you've saved a record onto our website, or if you've made a comment on it or made a correction on it, if other people are making corrections or comments to it or saving it to their own tree, we'll let you know about that in case that helps you uncover either something about the record you didn't know or a new person who's researching your same ancestor based on that connection around that historical record. So that category is available here on this page because it's kind of covering all the activity across the site. So the filters work the same way. This is the place that we're most actively working on ways to help you filter this list better. Some members will not have a lot on this list and will be very interested to see all of it. Others will have a very long list, and it may be a bit overwhelming. And until we actually add some more filtering options, for some members it may be most beneficial to essentially skip this list and just pick specific people in their tree that they want to check out, and then look at the list just for that individual, like the list we just saw a moment ago.
That actually leads me to a question that I have, and I know that other people have posed the question, is we've got potentially thousands of people in our tree, and only a handful, or in comparison, are actual ancestors. There are great-grandfathers, our great-great-grandfathers. Is there any potential down the road to be able to have Ancestry detect those direct lines that are ancestors, those key people? And because when we talk about spouses and great aunts and fifth cousins, that can become a lot of clutter, and it's not really our key focus in our research. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about those options.
Something we've been actively looking at, because that is it's been a suggested way to filter this. Is okay, just show me my ancestors, because those are the people I care about most, and that would greatly decrease what's on this list. So it is something we're playing with and looking at. It requires us to make sure we really understand who really is your ancestors, and we can kind of calculate that accurately and quickly for you. So it's not anything I'm going to promise really soon, but it's definitely something we're looking at and playing with. Another suggestion that's been made is you may have multiple family trees, and one's kind of a line you're less interested in, one you're more interested in, or one's a tree that you're just an editor of, but you don't do a lot of research on that. And the suggestion's been made to be able to filter this list by tree as well if you have multiple trees, and that's something we're also actively looking at.
I imagine also you could almost do it from the reverse approach, would be that the user would actually checkbox or click, these are the key ancestors, to let Ancestry know. So Ancestry doesn't have to try to figure that out through some kind of algorithm, but they could actually have the user identifying that. Because I could imagine, particularly not only as our research grows, but also as, you guys are out there doing some wonderful advertising and your business is growing. And so there'll be a wide range of users as well as the experience level of the users.
So really, the final area I had was just to make sure everybody was aware of kind of privacy settings and how that applies to this. Is that a good place for me to go next quickly? Great. So there's actually a few ways to get to this. In My Account, if you go to the My Account link, there'll be a link to your site or community preferences. Also, on most pages within this Collaborate, there'll be these links up here at the top. And you'll want to click on the My Site Preferences. That brings you to this page. We've got preferences around a few different things, around your public profile, around how you want to let people contact you or not contact you on the site. And then there's this area for activity preferences. So if you click on the link there, that brings you to the main settings that are applicable for Member Connect. So these settings will both affect what information about your research would be available to be seen when you're on that enhanced record page and that Member Connect panel on the right, as well as on those recent activity lists, because we definitely want to make sure people are totally comfortable with the information that we're sharing about their research. So first and foremost, if you do have a tree with us on our site, we still completely respect the privacy setting you have for that tree. If it's a private tree, then we will not show any information about that tree and details about the individuals in that tree. If somebody wanted to learn more, they'd need to contact you to find out more. But this kind of governs how easy it would be to find out about your public research and other things. So this first checkbox is things you publicly add or post to the site. So if that box is checked, then if you have a public tree, and for example you've saved a record, we'd show that you saved a record on that record page so that you and other members interested in that record could connect. If you uncheck that box, you wouldn't be listed there on that enhanced record page. If somebody did search and found your public member tree, they could see that record was there because your tree is public, but we wouldn't let them know about it in another way. Also, if this is unchecked, we won't include items about your research activity in your public tree on that recent activity list. So we wouldn't let people know about a birth date you corrected or things like that you're doing in your tree if you have that unchecked. The second box is personal research activities, and this is really covering this first sub-bullet that's listed here that you may or may not be able to read on your screen, but that's records or other content that you either save to your shoebox on the site or to private member trees. And right now we're not really surfacing anything about the shoebox at this point, but on the private member trees, if you have this checked, then we would let somebody who has saved a record that you're saving to your private tree know that you've saved it. They wouldn't be able to learn any information about individuals in your tree, but we'd essentially let them know that you'd saved it so that you guys could connect if you were both interested in the same ancestor. So again, that's going to both control whether or not those saves to your private tree are shown on that enhanced record page as well as on those recent activity lists.
We'll be right back with the final segment of this interview right after this. You know, I love bringing these genealogical gems to you that help boost your research and build a strong family tree. And it's important to me to always have free podcasts available so that everyone can participate. If you enjoy these free shows and you would like to help me cover the costs of bringing them to you each week, there's a really easy way to do that won't cost you a thing. By coming to my website at genealogygems.tv whenever you need to do some shopping online and accessing your favorite stores and websites through the links that you find on my site, you financially support the show. The price you pay is exactly the same, but Genealogy Gems receives a small percentage for referring you. It's just that simple. Amazon is one of my all-time favorite places to shop online. They have just about everything and at incredibly competitive prices. So next time you're looking for books, DVDs, software, electronics, apparel, pretty much anything at all, head to genealogygems.tv and click the Amazon ad that you find on the homepage or throughout the website. And these free podcasts will benefit by any shopping that you do. And you will get the same super low prices. Everybody wins. So if you enjoyed the Genealogy Gems podcast and the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, let your mouse do the shopping through the ads and links on the Genealogy Gems website, and together we'll keep new episodes coming for a long time to come. Now let's get back to the final segment of my interview on Member Connect with David Graham. Remind us again how we got to my preferences.
There's two different, and maybe the most straightforward way. First is these links on any page, most any page in the collaborate areas of the site. The other is in my account. So if you go to my account here, there will be a link. Sorry, our testing environment sometimes loads pages slowly. I'm still on here. But there'll be a link on the right as soon as this loads that will link you straight to those site preferences.
So if you go to my account, it would be over on the right and you'd look for my preferences. Great. And, you know, this brings me to a question. Unfortunately, we don't all live forever. And as somebody who maybe has their tree and all their data and everything on Ancestry, if for some reason, you know, if a person passes away, if they're no longer a member, if their subscription expires, what happens to their data and what happens to information they've posted and the sharing that's going on between them and other members? In terms of, you know, that your tree was up there, that you've shared, that you've made postings on images and that type of thing. Or do those things all stay? Does your tree stay? Does that get removed if your subscription is no longer there?
The pieces that are for subscribers only are really our historical record content, right? So if you were interested in one of those Ancestry hints and you saw that we found a census record and you wanted to look at that and save it and print it out and do all of that, that's for subscribers only. And also other places where we kind of find the smart matches between members based on kind of the searching we're doing behind the scenes, that's also for subscribers. But your tree itself is there for you. You can come back at any time. You don't have to be a subscriber. So, for example, you could build a tree, be a subscriber for a period of time while you're doing active research, and attach records and build out your research. And then you could take a break and say, I'm not going to subscribe for a while, I'm busy with life, and then come back a year later. And you could keep adding to your tree anything that you got from some source other than us, right? You could still upload photos. You could still type in any information that you're finding by talking to other people or going to courthouses or finding public records on the internet. Any of that you can still continue to do. It's really just to access kind of our smart matching technology and our historical records that you need to subscribe.
Yeah. So just to recap, Member Connect is for members, for subscribers, correct?
You no longer subscribe. We'll still let you know kind of that recent activity list would still be accessible, but to access some of that subscriber-only content would require a subscription. But you can kind of keep tabs on things and then resubscribe when it merited it.
And if another member attempts to connect with you and you're, like you say, on hiatus and maybe you're not current with your subscription, what happens with that connection?
If other members are, a new member who maybe comes along a month after your hiatus started, right, and is actually researching this person, is interested in connecting with you, they could reach out and send you a message, and you'd be notified by email that you received that message so you could get online and read it and see if that's a connection you're interested in.
Oh, great. So that part stays active, and you can at least hear from them and have that option and know that if you're ready to jump back in, you could certainly do that and renew your subscription and then get back involved.
Exactly.
Great. All right. Any other areas of Member Connect we need to really kind of be aware of, or a little helpful hints that you have for us?
There may be an overwhelming amount of stuff to dig into here. I've had some kind of email dialogues with some members that are like, okay, I'm enjoying this, I'm getting value out of it. How would you recommend it? It's a bit daunting. How would you recommend that I tackle this? And really, I'd recommend it the way you do any research is, focus on the person that you're interested in right now in your research, and see if there's connections and see if there's something valuable you can learn, and if there's some recent activity, check into them on that kind of person at a time. And that way that whole daunting list may be less daunting. And you can really hone in on the people that are really top of mind for you in your research right now.
That makes sense. I guess what I'm wondering is, how does that source information stay attached to the record? And I'm thinking about looking at all of the different people that we might be connecting with and trying to determine how much they are sourcing their research, if that makes sense. Would somehow the source information that you've got there, does that show up when we're trying to connect with people and help us to determine whether or not they're doing a good job of sourcing their materials?
But anybody that you're working with that's viewing your tree, whether that's somebody you've invited or somebody that you're kind of collaborating with publicly, they could see those sources and click through and see it. And if you were to export your tree as a GEDCOM or whatever, those sources would stay there. If you're instead printing this off or saving it to your computer and then adding it to a separate tree software program, that would kind of be upon you to bring that source information in as well.
Well, I think that in itself is a real benefit and a reason to perhaps get involved with the Ancestry family trees, because that source information is integrated into it, and that's a great way, by connecting with somebody and then getting access to look at their tree, if they allow that, to really determine if you feel like that they're getting the right sources, and you can see the documentation of it. So that's a great bonus.
Research information gets out to more people, and the misinformation starts disappearing, right? And I think that's going to take time, and clearly there's more we'd love to be able to do to facilitate that even better. But that's kind of our long-term hope, is that more people learn more information, but it's the right information.
Well, you've given us a great overview of what you've brought online recently. What can we look forward to in the future? As if you don't already have your hands full.
Yeah, so right now, as far as specific to this, we're always working on things around the site in general, specific to kind of these collaboration elements like Member Connect. Right now, we're really
you've given us a great
how it works
overview
on the real life site.
What
It's a project that we've been working on for a very long time.
What can we look forward to in the future?
It's always been
as if you don't already have your hands full.
And now we're really just heads down trying to absorb all the feedback and watch how this really works in real life with real family tree information and things so that we can just continue to make this piece better.
So this isn't the final version. We'll be seeing some revisions as you go along. Tell our listeners how they can provide feedback as they use Member Connect and how to get that to you.
That's a great question. I was going to offer that at the beginning of the interview and then forgot, so I'm glad you brought it up. So we have an email address specifically for this feature. It's just Member Connect.
So this isn't the final version. We'll be seeing some
and we'd love
revisions
any
as you
and
go
all
along.
feedback,
Tell our listeners how they can provide feedback as they use Member Connect.
We kind of have a supporting page on the site that's describing it and a few blog posts on our blog, and those have that email link as well. But I'd love that to get to as many people as possible. So we'd love all the feedback we could get. Again, that's memberconnectfeedback@ancestry.com.
And would the Ancestry blog be a place for us to kind of stay in tune with what's new and coming? Is that where you're making your announcements in terms of the little tweaks that come along the way?
Yeah, definitely. As we make improvements, we will make sure to blog about it there. Okay, so if you go to the Ancestry homepage, this is the recent Member Connect activity I mentioned. If you click the Customize Your Homepage link here, just whenever you're logged in, you can both move things up and down or remove them. So, for example, if you wanted to move the Member Connect activity box down on your page, you could do that. But you can also add additional items here. So you could click the Ancestry blog item. That'll give you a short description and a button to add it to your homepage. And then once you do that and close that, you've got that box now every time you come to the homepage on your homepage. So, for example, here's a link to my most recent blog post, more details and tips about Member Connect and Family Trees. So you can just check there to see if there's new blog posts you might be interested in.
Oh, a perfect way to stay on top of what's going on and right from our homepage. We don't even have to go anywhere else. David, this looks really interesting, very innovative. I'm sure there'll be lots of, gyrations as you go through the process, but I'm really glad to hear that you're interested in the feedback of the users. And again, they can reach you at memberconnectfeedback@ancestry.com. Great. Anything else we should know?
Just like you said, we'd like to continue to improve this, so we welcome all feedback.
Well, David Graham, thank you so much for joining us today on the show and giving us a personal tour. We appreciate it.
Profile America, Tuesday, September 1st. The greatest conflict in human history started on this date 70 years ago as Nazi Germany invaded Poland, starting World War II. The wave of fighting eventually swept around the globe as the Allied powers struggled to defeat the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Estimates vary on the number killed between September 1939 and August 1945 and range from 50 to 70 million. The Soviet Union lost the largest number of its population, an estimated 23 million. A total of 16 million American men and women served in the armed forces during the war. Today, just under 3 million veterans of World War II survive. You can find these and more facts about America from the U.S. Census Bureau online at census.gov.
This next gem is another wonderful blog post from genealogy blogger Lee Drew. I have really enjoyed hearing Lee read some of these for us, and I hope that you have too. So here's another family history moment with Lee Drew called Choices and Consequences.
This is Lee Drew with the Fam Hist blog. Choices and consequences. They never sleep. From the time we are born, we make choices and enjoy the consequences of those choices. We often associate the word consequences with something bad, but it also represents something good happening in our lives. The good is a result of a choice or choices that are building blocks or enablers of positive positioning and positive results in the experiences of life. My father was not known as a leader in the community, in business, or even in his neighborhood. Rather, he was an activist who quietly and often anonymously improved the lives of others. His choices were usually simple, yet always consistent. He actively looked for a way to improve the life or outlook of others and rarely failed to immediately act on an opportunity. Frequently, his actions consisted of only a few kind words spoken to address an area in the personality of his contact that was shunned or ignored by others. On some occasions, he gave all the money that he had to those in need. A pair of shoes to a 12-year-old. A ride and a tank of gas for a stranded traveler. He even gave his vehicle to a widow who was struggling to feed her 3 small children. Over the years, many new people came into his circle of friends. They were from all levels of the social strata. Some were wealthy, some were movie stars, and others lived in shacks hidden away along the river or in an orchard. However, most of them were just ordinary people who only needed the polishing of a few kind words or acts to help them reveal their true nobility. The term "pay it forward" was first introduced into his vocabulary in 1962 when his vehicle stalled in the center lane of a bridge in Seattle during the rush hour. Cars honked, people said things out of their windows, and others shook their fists in frustration, but only one young man stopped to help. After years of quietly helping other people, Dad received a return payment for his way of life. The vehicle was easy to fix. The carburetor was only vapor-locked. The young mechanic poured some cool water over the hot fuel system, and the vehicle started easily. Dad tried to pay him for his help, only to receive the words, "Pay it forward," to someone else in need. Like ripples from a rock thrown into a peaceful lake, the good deeds of a lifetime had reflected off the far shore, and had come back to help him in a time of need. It was time to send them out again, and to continue to pay it forward. During the visitation at his funeral, our family was astounded to be greeted by hundreds of people from all over the western United States who had come to pay their respects. We didn't know most of them, but the visitors all had stories to tell about how they were helped by our deceased father and husband. Many of the visitors had only met him once, but the interaction had established a lifelong feeling of friendship. They came from all walks of life. There were mayors, truck drivers, waitresses, a man on parole, a bank president, an attorney, and hundreds of other occupations. Their stories were as varied as the personalities telling them. Enthralled, we listened for hours. One friend was a police officer whose life had been saved. Another had driven 16 hours nonstop from Northern California to make it in time for the funeral. He explained that he had received a hot meal when he was at the bottom, from a fellow who quietly walked over and sat next to him. He said that he was now a successful husband and father, and that his life had turned around after talking to the man at the counter in the bowling alley that day. Retrieving his wallet, he showed the worn, tiny slip of paper on which he'd written the name of his benefactor, saying that he often looked at it when life threatened to harden him. The stories were new. The impact of repeatedly choosing to perform small, positive acts resulted in consequences never imagined. The ripples were almost waves. Choices and consequences. They never sleep. Thomas S. Monson said, "It has been said that the gate of history turns on small hinges, and so do people's lives. The choices we make determine our destiny." I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Robert Frost, the poet. Best in your own ancestral quest to all of you. This is Lee Drew.
Are you looking for a way to get even more genealogy gems that will power boost your research, inspire your creativity, and give you the motivation that you need to tackle that brick wall? Well, become a Genealogy Gems premium member. You'll get 2 extra members-only episodes every month, packed with great information that you can use right away. An instructional video series walking you through the best internet tools step by step. Our current series is called Google, a Goldmine of Genealogy Gems, and in each episode you can follow along with me as I show you online how to get the most out of Google. If you enjoy the Genealogy Gems podcast, then you're going to love being a premium member. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what your fellow podcast listeners have to say.
This is Melissa Parker in Tennessee. I'm just calling to let you know how much I'm enjoying your Genealogy Podcast Premium Edition. I especially love the handwriting analysis with Paula Sassy, and all the tips and information that you give is just so wonderful. I would encourage anyone to become a member of your Genealogy Gems Podcast Premium.
To become a premium member and start reaping the benefits right away, go to genealogygems.tv and click the Join Today button. And by entering the special coupon code SAVE20, that's SAVE20, you will get 20% off the annual membership. Genealogy Gems Premium Membership. It's where you belong. Well, we've come to the end of episode 71 of the Genealogy Gems podcast. My thanks to my very special guests, David Graham at Ancestry.com and Lee Drew of the Lineage Keeper blog at lineagekeeper.blogspot.com and the FamHist blog at famhist2.blogspot.com. To stay up on everything going on at Genealogy Gems, be sure and sign up for the free e-newsletter. Just go to the website at genealogygems.tv, click on the sign up button in the left-hand column, and when you do that, you will get a 20-page ebook free on Google research strategies as a thank you gift. And of course, you'll find the show notes for this episode number 71 there on the website as well. And I encourage you to email me again with your questions or comments at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. And before I sign off, I just want to let you know that I am going to be going in for some surgery in early September, and I know that my recovery time is going to take around 4 weeks. So you may not be hearing from me as regularly as usual, but I hope that you do stay in touch and be patient until I'm up on my feet again. I'm going to try and get some things wrapped up here beforehand, so hopefully you Genealogy Gems premium members won't notice any difference in the regularity of premium shows and videos. And really, I'm having a blast with this new video series I'm working on coming up, so I know you're going to love it. So anyway, I do appreciate your understanding and patience as I get this taken care of, and really can't wait until I get back to the microphone with more Genealogy Gems for you. So happy ancestor hunting, and thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.